April 5th, 2063 is less than 40 years away from today. And if you don't know the significance of April 5th, it is First Contact Day. If you haven't seen Star Trek First Contact, I highly recommend it. Spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about parts of the movie here. So if you haven't seen it, go ahead, pause this video, watch the movie, and then come back to this. Originally, I was planning to shoot this video last year in 2023 because in 2023, it would have been the 40th year pre-anniversary of First Contact Day and saying, hey, in exactly 40 years from now, we're going to be inventing the warp drives and meeting the Vulcans, but that didn't happen because I forgot. So here we are in 2024, and if we were to go back in time to 2023 using chronometric particles to alter the timeline so that I can post and brag about saying, hey, 40 years from now, we're going to meet the Vulcans and invent the warp drive, that would be in direct violation of the temporal prime directive. So let's not do that. Anyway, by now, you probably know that on April 5th, 2063, Zefram Cochrane launches his first ever capable warp ship, the Phoenix, into space. He tests out the warp drive. The Vulcans just so happened to be passing by because originally they were ignoring humans because they were too boring. And now that they detected the first ever warp signature invented by the humans, now all of a sudden they're interested. They come to Earth. They meet the humans for the first time, hence First Contact. And to celebrate this day, we're going to be going over 5 different Star Trek trivia starting now. All right, I got my notes up. Let's see how much of this trivia you guys get. Starting with the first question over here. How many decks does the Enterprise E have? Well, this was a tricky one. If you Google this, you'll see 24 decks. If you watch Star Trek First Contact, you'll see Picard himself mention that there are 24 decks on the Enterprise E. And keep in mind, this is not the Enterprise D, the Galaxy-class starship. This is the Sovereign-class Enterprise E. And even though Picard does mention that there are 24 decks, there's a crewman later on that mentions something about Deck 26 being taken over by the Borg. Not sure what's going on there. Probably a script mistake, but I think since Picard said 24 decks, that's probably the official answer, and that other crewman didn't know what he was talking about with this imaginary Deck 26. Did you know that Leonard Nimoy used to have a thick Boston accent? Yes, Spock himself used to have a thick Boston accent, but not on the show. So shortly after moving to the Boston area, I found out that Leonard Nimoy himself grew up not too far away. I believe it was the west part of Boston. But growing up, he had acquired the Boston accent and it was very noticeable. And to play the character of Spock on Star Trek, he had to drop that, and he did it with a vocal coach. There's an interview video somewhere on YouTube, and it was pretty amusing to hear him try out the Boston accent again. But he talks through the experience of going through the vocal coach and not having Spock sound like someone from Boston, but rather someone that's half human and half Vulcan. But imagine Spock saying something like "Pak the ka and have a yard." Number 3, did you know out of all sci-fi, Klingon is the most developed fictional language that's out there? There's actually a paper dictionary that I bought, and I can't find it for some reason, but I do have the cassette tape that goes along with it, and it looks like this. In case you haven't seen a cassette tape before, here's the tape outside of the box. So next time you see your Klingon friends, you can have gawk with them and say "nok nek." Or if you see an enemy, someone that you don't like or anything like that, you can call them a patah. Number 4, Ro Laren was supposed to be one of the main characters on Star Trek Deep Space Nine, but that was changed at the last minute. Michelle Forbes, who played the Ro Laren character from Star Trek The Next Generation, was asked to be on Star Trek Deep Space Nine as one of the main characters, but she did decline, and they had to replace the Ro Laren character with Kira Nerys on Deep Space Nine, so that's where the character came from. Another fun fact is that Michelle Forbes did return to Star Trek Picard as Ro Laren to play the character, even though she wasn't in Star Trek Deep Space Nine. And finally, number 5, the authorization for self-destruct is a bit goofy on Star Trek. Now, if a ship gets taken over by some enemy, the captain can decide to initiate self-destruct to blow up the ship. But not just any one person should be able to blow up the ship, and there should be layers of security here, which we see in a couple of places. For example, in Star Trek 3, The Search for Spock, Kirk and 2 other senior officers had to be present and to give authorization to initiate self-destruct. Okay. Also, in Star Trek First Contact, we see the same. We need to have the captain and 2 other senior officers to initiate self-destruct. I would think that they should add maybe even another layer, maybe like an isolated chip that is required to initiate the self-destruct on top of the voice authorization, but that's another topic. It gets worse. On Star Trek Voyager, when Captain Janeway initiates self-destruct, all she needed to do was to give her command, and then the ship initiated the self-destruct sequence. What is that? Why is there a single factor authentication for self-destruct on Voyager, whereas on other ships, there's multi-factor authentication? I don't get that. How did you guys do on the trivia? Let me know in the comments below. Also, I'll leave with a parting thought. With Star Trek, they have automatic doors, but how do they work? Because in some scenes, maybe in a dramatic scene where someone's walking towards a door, they pause, and let's say there's another person on the other side of the room, they'll turn, say one more line, and then they'll turn back to the door, and then it opens. Like, how does the computer know that and anticipate that? Or just people walking in the corridor near doors, and how do they know if they're gonna turn into any of the doors, right? If they keep it closed and someone just walks into the door, that's no good. As a matter of fact, we probably see some of that in the bloopers in the Star Trek reels. But how does the computer realistically determine if someone's going to enter or exit a room, right? Because you can be near a door and be like, oh, I'm just kidding, not going to exit through the door anymore. So that's kind of one of the things I'm wondering about Star Trek and how that works. Anyway, happy First Contact Day. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Thanks for watching this video, and live long and prosper.